Good morning. Well, power is back on, so my life is back to usual to a certain degree. So, exiting the Matrix, part 11, freedom. So I think the end goal for everybody involved on Earth at this point is freedom. We basically want to be able to live in a way that we don't feel like something is impeding upon our freedom. We want the ability to be ourselves. We want the ability to explore and express. We want the ability to try different things, and we don't want to be tied down to any one thing that we do. This is really basic. This is joyful curiosity and exploration, being playful. So the Matrix basically sees this as the default state of the human being, wants to be in joyful curiosity and expansion and discovery. And so they seek to basically taint that and confuse that and poison that as much as they can, because they realize, the Matrix realizes that reality is stronger than the Matrix, and the instant the Matrix lets up, the reality is going to come flooding back in. So they are working 24/7. We got pollution machines, we got pollution ideas, we got pollution emotions, we got whatever. But they are working non-stop. It's an artificial machine that's working to create a fake hologram. The Matrix is a fake hologram. These holograms are made out of belief systems. They're made out of purposeful waste. The Matrix holograms are made out of intentional cruelty, creating a system of cruelty and reinforcing a system of cruelty. That's an artificial Matrix program that has nothing to do with being human. That is the darkness. When we reference the devil, the darkness, unconsciousness, we're all saying the same thing. We're all saying the ego. We're saying the unconscious mind and the unconscious emotional body. Lack of consciousness, allowing no consciousness to be the ruler. These are all the same word, the same metaphor for the same thing. And basically, all it wants is to preserve itself. Darkness wants to preserve itself. Darkness doesn't want to experience light. That's all darkness is not light. So these forces of darkness, they're just afraid of the light. That's all they are. So as soon as we start shining our light, they tend to get a little afraid. They tend to get a little uncomfortable. People that are slaves, still enslaved by the Matrix, like really enslaved, get really uncomfortable when we start shining our light. When we're just happy for no reason, we're saying, hey, life is pretty cool. Look at all these cool things in life. This is when people who are enslaved start saying, hey, how is he happy and I'm not happy? I'm following the rules. And I'm going to, I'm going to be fearful and mistrustful of this person because they look happy and they're not supposed to be happy. They must be making it up. They must be doing something wrong. So this is the unconscious mind. This is the reaction that the unconscious mind will happen. Again, 99.9% of all people on this planet are within the slave matrix. They do not realize that they are slaves and they are living as slaves within the slave matrix. Most of us know, even this giant percentage of people know that there's something missing and something wrong, but have not taken the time to identify what it is yet. The Matrix says, don't be curious. The Matrix says, be unconscious, be in darkness, be in your ego, don't know. It's cool to not know. It's cool to be able to say, I don't care. It's cool to be able to say, I don't want to learn anymore. It's cool to be able to, disrespect someone because we think we're more powerful than them. This is the Matrix. This is the ego, the unconsciousness. This is the forces of the devil, whatever you want to call it. That's all the same thing. I have no attachment to any particular reference language. So part about no longer being a slave and being open in our curious, loving, expansive heart and beyond is the ability to not be attached to names and labels. We can use names and labels for their benefit, not for their negativity. It's really, really simple. If we have triggers for ourselves, or if we're around a population that has a lot of triggers, we will adjust our language accordingly because there are so many different words we can choose to use. I want to try to use a variety of different words when I touch on key concepts like freedom and slavery, and what the Matrix is, and what darkness and the devil is, because these are really defining points that I've heard all kinds of wild theories about, and I believe all the wild theories. I think that all of the theories about everything are all true, proportionally though. So, if someone who's very unconscious is talking about something, probably proportionally very relatively small amount of what they're saying is true, but they are speaking some truth and we can learn from that. So part of being free and escaping slavery is embracing curiosity. I talked about this in episode 10, last episode, but embracing curiosity, exiting the fear matrix. So fear, people talk about fear as a form of control, but the projection of a fear reality is a holographic matrix, part of the holographic fear matrix. And we can step outside of this every time we realize it's coming. We have no need. Fear does not serve any purpose other than to remind us of our instincts. If we are grounded, if we are present and we are centered, if we are acting like logically and consciously, fear doesn't serve a purpose. Fear detracts from our ability to do these other things. So fear, again, is the biggest part of the holographic matrix. It's a hologram because it appears to be real. People act like it's real. People tell us it's real. People enforce it and fight for it. But it's not really real because it doesn't sustain itself on its own. If you get a couple people who have woken up together, they're not going to be in fear. We are not in fear. Once we realize that all we have to do is clear our ego out of the way and there's like infinite light that can shine through us, this is like, one of the highest scientific principles we've uncovered so far, that if we can clear out our ego, we become like more capable of being light. This is what the ancient philosophers and the ancient scientists and the ancient astronomers all said the same thing. They're like, yeah, the ego is this limiting capacity. The ego basically is the darkness, is the devil, is the unconsciousness, and the soul is just getting that out of the way because the soul is eternal and the soul wants to be everywhere. The soul wants to embody in consciousness and the soul wants to connect different forms of consciousness together. So sitting down and talking with a cricket might be a good idea. A cricket at that stage of consciousness might not be ready to reciprocate that same level of communication, but guaranteed it's going to biologically and to some degree emotionally respond. There's going to be a nervous system response and there's going to be an observed response. So we can hang out with insects. If a mosquito bites me, I might, trying to not let it bite me again and try to get it out or get away from it, but I might respect the fact that this is a form of consciousness coming and communicating with me, because why not? I get bitten by spiders all the time. Virtually my whole life I've had a spider bite somewhere on my body. They always do it while I'm sleeping. I don't remember ever being bitten except, woken up and not knowing why I woke up and found a spider bite. But anyways, I have learned to embrace spiders. I find them a little bit creepy. I'm still very respectful of them and but I view them as another form of being. I'm not going to allow fear. The fear matrix has told us to kill things that hurt us. But again, that's fear. So if something hurts us, that usually means that there's a message trying to be delivered. If there's a physical harm involved, it's usually because other forms of expression aren't working. And so if I am the greater consciousness, if I am the parent in this situation, I'm not going to blame my less conscious child for biting me because it didn't know better. Okay, this is logic. This is called conscious parenting. This is called being conscious. I no longer seek any harm against spiders. I view myself as a protector of spiders. They bite me. Sometimes the venom really reacts and I have a week of itching, burning, whatever patch on my skin. But it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't hurt as bad as someone being mean to me even. I would rather, get an occasional spider bite and deal with that than have people being perpetually mean to me, because we live in a society, again, that projects cruelty. The fear matrix also projects cruelty. So the cruelty matrix and the fear matrix, the way we step outside of them is we vibe higher. And this is what the main subject of episode 10, last episode, was all about, is vibing higher. And what this means is we realize and accept all of reality, realize and accept that we are above the vibration of a lower vibration that is attempting to hurt us. So for this example, a spider bite, it might physically hurt and irritate me a little bit, but I have love and respect for all beings. Maybe I have boundaries around disrespect. I'm not going to sit there letting a spider bite me a bunch of times, but if a spider bites me because it doesn't know any better, I'm not going to get mad at the spider. I'm going to use my intelligence here, okay? But this shouldn't be transcendental information right here. This should be common sense. If we have kids, we don't yell at them because they didn't know better. If there's someone who hasn't learned something, we don't yell at them because they haven't learned it yet. If a spider has a limited amount of awareness because it's much smaller and doesn't see the world in the same way as me, maybe it's drawn to me for some other reason. Who knows? Anyways, I'm not going to blame the people, the unconscious people or the beings, whatever form they're taking, faking. I'm not going to blame these people for the damage they do, for the damage they cause, because they're acting from their own perspective as best they can. I will simply recreate boundaries, redefine boundaries. So maybe my boundaries around spiders includes looking through my bedding before I go to bed at night, or taking a little extra time to look in the corners of my room and let some spiders outside if there's a population in my room. I'm gonna redefine the boundaries of the relationship. I'm gonna keep a little bottle of apple vinegar, which is really good for insect bites, and around me all the time, so when I get bitten I can reduce the symptoms very dramatically and have it not bother me as much or for as long. Same with people. I'm going to create boundaries around people that are routinely disrespectful if I have to be around them routinely. I'm going to create fake personas that's going to give them a little bit of what they want and prevent my active consciousness from being drawn into any kind of engagement, because when I'm around unconscious people, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to hear anything they have to say. They don't want to hear anything I want to have to say. So I got to create some kind of fake persona where I'm spending minimal amount of energy around these people, because the Matrix tells us to be narcissistic, to have other people meet our needs for us, to have control over other people. So the more I can disengage from this whole Matrix reality of slavery and seeking to control other people, even genuinely honest, respectful, kind, nurturing people that are slaves within the Matrix are imprinted with all these slave marks and emotionally are very distraught people. People are very unhappy because of the Matrix. People are very happy because of themselves. When we talk about ourselves as being the ultimate source of love and wisdom and happiness, it's because we are. The Matrix has simply told us that we're not. And when we have a bunch of people around us, we are empathetic beings. We are psychic and empathetic to varying levels of degrees. We feel each other's feelings and we hear each other's thoughts, not always with the same degree of clarity and comprehension. But because we are empathetic beings, if there's a bunch of people that are in the slave matrix and are really beaten down by all the cruelty and they are holding on to that cruelty because we're taught to hold on to it, we're told that it's smart to hold on to our pain instead of to let go of it, I'm going to shield myself from that. I don't want to absorb that. There's science studies have shown the people that we are around are the people that we more become. We absorb our environment. And so if I have to be around people that are lower than my state of consciousness and that are emotionally enslaved in this cruelty system, they're doing their best to not be cruel, but they're going to end up being cruel because they don't know better. They're going to be emotionally triggered and start being cruel because they don't know better. They've been enslaved. They've been forced to do this. They've been taught to be mean. So we have to protect ourselves. Basically, this is what it comes down to us. Because we who are starseeds and much more empathic, much more sensitive, we sense more of reality. We sense deeper into reality. We sense higher into reality. But we also sense more intensity. We sense the reality of life much more with more intensity. So we must shield ourselves with proper boundaries, which means that we can find ways of being real that's translated just enough that it doesn't get people too pissed off. We can be in the zone of, oh, he's that crazy smart guy, or oh, she's that eclectic creative person who's always come up with things. People will create their own names and labels and images. We don't have to be the Southern California Hollywood dramatic image of the counterculture person. We can be whoever we want, but we can kind of work with what other people see us as. We don't have to conform to it, but we can kind of work with it. Showing our good sides is definitely really important when we're working for ways to be genuine and have safe boundaries. We really want to let our good side shine, because if people are consistently seeing how happy we are, how motivated we are, how supportive we are, then we're gonna have this whole evening out effect. They've been kind of, the fear matrix and the slave matrix tells us that, things even each other out. It's okay to be mean to each other because then we're nice to each other sometimes. This is the biggest form of unconsciousness. This is how conscious parenting is going to revolutionize the world almost instantly, because as soon as we realize that a positive and a negative don't balance each other out, they're both just positive and negative, then we'll move on to just being as positive as we can all the time and start studying why we're negative and releasing it, because we don't need it anymore. But we would let go of the system that sometimes we're positive and sometimes we're negative and it's all okay, because that is not true. There's no justification for being mean. There's all kinds of reasons for being mean, but we can work on them. We don't have to just accept being mean. This whole concept that we're allowed to be mean, that we make enough money, or that we're powerful enough, or that we're attractive enough that we're allowed to be mean to people. We can get away with being mean. This is something we can just kind of let go of. It's not necessary. We can find happiness within ourselves. If we are still looking external for a source of happiness, it's very temperamental and very fleeting. I read in a book the other day, one of the truest forms of happiness, or observing happy people, we find that people who do not care too much about themselves are the happiest. People that care about themselves are the most miserable people. So these people that are power hungry and trying to gain control and manipulative, these are the most miserable people. They're trying to control everyone else. They're trying to throw their power trips because they do not have the ability to be happy. They have given up on the ability to be happy. Again, another slave projection. This is just a hologram. Being unhappy. It's a choice we have. We're told to be unhappy. We're given a lot of reasons to be unhappy. Don't get me wrong. The Matrix, some of the projections of the Matrix are very, very tangible and take many different forms. So the fact that they have created a slave system based on charging money for power. This is a criminal activity. Power is free. Charging money, forcing people to work day jobs so that they can afford to pay for power, to power their homes and to have a home. That is one of the most cruel things I could possibly think of. Power is a free commodity. Charging for power, using power as a justification for people to kill each other, is just... Come on. This is infantile level of consciousness. This is, come on, I want to do everything. I want to push all the buttons. I want to take all the stuff. I want to have all the stuff. I want to be right all the time. So basically, all we have to do is live within practical reality. Discover what our needs are, discover how to have them met within ourselves, discover what they mean, study what our needs are. The more we study our needs, the more we realize that we don't really have needs. We just have communication we need with ourselves. When we have enough different kinds of dialogue with ourselves, we realize that our needs are very finite. We can come up with a list of needs that we can, write out on a little piece of paper. When we find out what our true needs are, then we can just focus on those very few true needs, and we don't have to be in a state of worry. Someone says anxiety is the anticipation of an unmet need. So if we're really focused and we know what our needs are and we're having them met and we know that there aren't that many of them, then we don't really experience anxiety anymore, which is wonderful. I actually used to have anxiety all the time. And once I realized that it wasn't me that was unhappy, it was everyone else around me that was trying to tell me to be unhappy, then I didn't have anxiety anymore. I'm now, as I discover anxiety within myself, I'm actively dissolving. I'm like, wait a second, I still have anxiety around this? Why? I'm going to go ahead and solve the problem right now. I'm going to do something about it right now. I have unleashed my creative force. We all have this creative brilliance, this creative force that says, hey, why? How can I do this? How can I figure this out? We've been told not to have it. We've been told, only the engineer is smart enough to figure out how a car works. Only a handyman knows how to do plumbing and electricity work. Really, we're all intelligent, creative beings. We can all learn this stuff. That's the whole point of writing. Writing is dangerous because people can be very manipulative and cruel with writing, but writing is powerful. I learned how to replace the starter in my car. Instead of spending $450, I spent 2 hours and $50. It was great. These are the kinds of things. We can always try to do it for ourselves before we fall to the default method. Unless it is something that is very intense or dangerous or has really big consequences, we can always try it ourselves. We can always try to learn. This is why the internet is brilliant. We can learn how to do almost anything on the internet. So again, curiosity, leaving the matrix because we no longer believe in these false holograms of being mean to each other, of being afraid, of thinking that we can't do things, of being shut off from learning more. Basically, when we celebrate our best parts and look for the best parts of other people to celebrate, we are happy. And when we're encouraging the best parts of us and we're encouraging the best parts of others, when we're creating a game out of encouragement, we're breaking the matrix. We are creating reality because all we have to do is clear the matrix out of the way, like I was talking about in episode 10. The real reality is right here. We just have a bunch of holograms projected on top of it. As soon as we stop these holograms, as soon as we stop paying attention to them even, we see that reality is much more real and much more immediate and around us and much more encompassing. The matrix has done a brilliant job of creating illusionary holograms on top of reality. As soon as we turn turn off these machines and don't focus on them, we see how amazing and beautiful reality is. There's no stretch or leap of logic in human consciousness coalescing into a very potent tribal form on a global digital scale. We're not talking about going back to the Stone Age. We're talking about love and consciousness directing us rather than fear and unconsciousness. We can keep all our wonderful technology. We would just seek to make it in harmony, seek to make it balance. And instead of tech heads trying to make their numbers go higher and their processor speeds go faster, we'll seek on making technology integrative with nature so we're not so dependent on ridiculous amounts of power and sitting in rooms and boxes with computers all the time. We'll make them a little bit more organic and filled with life. They're an expression of our consciousness. Anyways, I could just keep going forever. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday.